Hey, so what's going on, everyone? And I actually planned for this next upload to be a Q&A video. However, I decided to change the plan because on April 24th, Crunchyroll very silently released Overlord: The Sacred Kingdom on its streaming platform. Finally, all of us Overlord fans had been waiting for months for this, and I desperately needed a refresher on the movie. I could tell in part 5 that my memory was really starting to slip a bit on like certain scenes, because it had been several months since I had seen the movie. And on April 24th, they released it subbed and dubbed. I have now watched both versions. I had previously only watched the dubbed version, and I gotta tell you, even on another watch through, I still really like the movie. Honestly, I think it's a good watch. But because of that release on streaming platforms, it has motivated me. I want to finish out the cut content videos on the Sacred Kingdom movie, especially now that I can watch it at any time and be very fresh on the material. And so with that being said, today we are going to be covering chapter 6 of volume 13. This is the second to last chapter of the volume. It also covers a very entertaining portion of the movie for me, and that was all the interactions between Nea and CZ Delta, or as she's referred to in the movie and in the light novel as Shizu, and that's what I'm going to be referring to her as in the rest of this video. But no, her full name is CZ2128 Delta. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it, because I want to talk about this stuff. So last time we left off was the end of chapter 5, and there was a meeting that took place between Casbond, the Paladin Order, Nea was there, and there was also several nobles from the Robo Holy Kingdom. So I already talked about that scene in my last video, but in the movie, that scene does not take place, and they kind of merge like some of what happens in that meeting with a meeting that takes place later on that they show in the movie that's also in the book. They've done this before in the movie. A prime example is, I think it was part 2 of my cut content. In volume 12, the light novel, there was one battle scene where Ainz does all that stuff at the gate that we see in the movie, and then there's another separate battle scene that takes place days later where he actually fights Buser. Whereas in the movie, they made all of that happen at the same time in the same place. That's kind of what happens here with these meetings. There's 2 separate meetings, but in the movie they made them one meeting. So the first scene shown in the movie during this portion of the light novel is it's been 3 days since Ainz has been defeated and Nea is training. So there's actually a small scene that takes place before this 3-day time skip that was cut from the movie, and it's between Nea and several other people, and it's basically showing you Nea's like kind of growing group, and how I mentioned in the last cut content that she's kind of collecting people that are like-minded and think like her, and it's basically just showing us that she is getting more and more people. There are more people coming over to her side, and she basically gets a group together of volunteers to go look for Ainz in the territory of the Sacred Kingdom. And this is actually a deviation from the movie, because in the light novel, she does get permission to send a search party out. Now granted, she doesn't go with them because she has no ranger skills, but Casbond actually does give permission for a search party to be dispatched so long as they look only in the Sacred Kingdom territory. And they did a good job of showing this in the movie, but it's really emphasized heavily in the light novel. Is basically Nea is kind of losing her shit over not getting any news about Ainz, and she's not sleeping very much. You can see it in the movie too, but she's getting bags under her eyes. I don't think they really showed it all that well in the movie, but in the light novel, every time she like looks at people or takes off her visor, people are like, whoa, like because her face is like so scary, because she already has like a super fierce face. This happens several times in the light novel. Basically every time someone sees Nea without her visor on, they're like, whoa, what's going on with you? I think you need to chill out. So in the light novel, in the movie, she gets called to meet with Casbond, and this is where I'm talking about that they kind of merged this conversation with the previous scene that had already taken place in the light novel. Because in the movie, Nea asks about, oh, are we sending a search party out to go look for the Sorcerer King? But in the light novel, that conversation and all that had already taken place, so that wasn't a part of this conversation in the light novel. So in the light novel, they immediately bring in the Zarin representative, and this is all pretty much the same, but there's a couple of observations made by Nea that are kind of excluded from this conversation in the movie. So in the movie, this is all real quick. Like, they just kind of break down the plot points exactly of just, okay, the Zaren want to rebel, we're gonna save their prince, we'll get the Zaren on our side. In the light novel, they spend more time, number one, from Nea's point of view, talking about how skeptical she is of the Zaren. She is very, very dubious about the Zaren and this whole plan of theirs. And second of all, they talk a little bit more about kind of political things going on here, because Caspond talks about how the Zarens have kind of like put them in a position of power over them because they now know that the Zarens want to betray Yaldabaoth. And so Caspond's like saying like, oh, we can just use that against them, and we can get like the demi-human army to wipe out the Zaren if we have to. Nea makes a note of how ruthless Caspond is. That doesn't have anything to do with what's going on right now, but that does come into play later. When we get to that, I'll talk about it, but I just wanted to make a note of that right there. The light novel also gives a really detailed breakdown of how fortified Kalinsha is, which is the city that they're going to infiltrate to save the prince. It was designed as a fortress city, and it's a bottleneck point in the Robo Holy Kingdom. Basically the most fortified city, even more so than their capital Hoburns, in the entire Robo Holy Kingdom. And like how there's a sky bridge, like we see that later on in the movie, like it's really hard to do anything with that without being spotted. And they give you more scale as to how difficult this mission actually is. And because of the difficulty of the mission, at first in the light novel, Nea says no. They're like, hey Nea, we're gonna put you on this mission. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, there's no way I can do this, because she's just like, I have no stealth skills, like I'm not a stealthy fighter, like this is not for me. But she decides to do it purely because she thinks in her mind, this is a chance for me to be useful to the Sorcerer King, so I'm gonna take this chance and I'm gonna do it. Because she's already kind of developed this pseudo ideology of hers of like, oh, weakness is a sin. We see this in the movie. She says that a few times in the movie. She doesn't really hesitate all that much in the movie. You don't really get to see that, whereas in the light novel it's very clear, like Nea is not confident that she's gonna be able to pull this off at all. So then in the movie, after this, Caspond sends Nea to go see Shizu. That's not what happens in the light novel. Shizu is actually introduced in this scene. So in the light novel, they bring her in and she's in chains, which doesn't really mean much because she actually shows them that like she's like, okay, and she's about to break the chains, but Remedios stops her. And this is where she's just like, oh yes, I'm under Lord Ainz's control and he told me to work with you guys, so I'll help you with this. And Nea is super sus about this whole thing. She is also super dubious of CZ. We don't really see that all that much in the movie either, but that persists like pretty much up until the end of the mission that they're on, is that Nea is just constantly doubting that CZ is actually under the control of Ainz, and like she could just be pretending and secretly working for Yaldabaoth. That thought process persists so much for the remainder of this chapter. There's just always these offhanded like remarks of, oh, she could be working for Yaldabaoth, oh, this could be a lie. We don't really see any of that doubt in the movie. In the movie, she is just full hog, you know, all in. She also notes that Caspond's reasoning for like sending her on this mission with ZZ, because she questions it. She's like, yo, we just met this girl, like we don't know anything about her. She could be, you know, lie. We don't know what she can do. Like this could all be lies. Nea notes that Caspond's reasoning is super vague and like it's not like very reasonable and stuff like that. In the light novel, we get this internal dialogue from Nea where she realizes she's being used as basically a sacrificial pawn. Basically, she sees that this whole situation has been engineered to where if Nea succeeds as a part of this mission, then it's like, oh, a representative of the Sacred Kingdom was there to help. But if the mission fails and, you know, Nea's killed, then it's just a troublesome squire that, you know, had like, that was attached to the Sorcerer King was removed. And so the way Nea sees it is she's been set up to fail. So then Shizu's let out and Nea says, oh, I need to talk to her more in order to understand. If I'm going to work with her, I need to get to know her better. I did want to point out, they don't really make a comment on this in the movie, but the reason why they put Shizu in that abandoned mansion was because it's basically a pseudo isolation cell. And that's why it's all boarded up and there's no lights on in there, is because it's supposed to be an isolation cell, or a makeshift one, basically. And that's why they're keeping her in there. So in the movie, this is the first time Nea is meeting Shizu, whereas it isn't in the light novel. The conversation is pretty much the same. There's not really much to say in terms of cut content in this single conversation here. I did want to make a few observations about some of the comments that are thrown out in this conversation though. So one of the first things that happens is Shizu pulls out these, like, I think they're chocolate shakes. I think that's what they are. And she gives one to Nea, and she comments that they're very high in calories and they have 2,000 calories in them. And then she says like, oh, one of the supreme beings said that getting fat off of sweets should be a life goal. And I think the supreme being she was quoting was Ankaro Mochi Mochi, who designed Pistonia and Eclair, and they're like her whole thing was like she just loved sweets, and that's why all of her NPCs have like the sweets names. Like Pistonia's name has her full name's Pistonia Shortcake Wako, and then Eclair of course is the dessert as well. And then Nea just drinks it and she's like, oh my god, this is so delicious, can I have another one? And in her mind she's just like, oh, I'll just cancel this out by having a lighter dinner, because she doesn't know what calories are. This is a medieval world, so they don't know what that is. So she doesn't know that, you know, this little thing has your entire daily caloric intake in it. So that's why she has 2 days worth of calories in one go. I guess for a medieval, probably malnourished soldier, you know, that's probably fine to do once. There was this small thing that was cut from the movie where Shizu comments on Nea's bow, and she goes like, oh, you should show off your bow more, or like, oh, your bow is very impressive, you need to show it to more people. And Nea can tell that Shizu is very clearly like just following a script. Like she's just like, it sounded like someone else said those words for her and she's just copying them. So there's even more Rune running gag stuff in the light novel than there was in the movie, which was already one of the funniest points of the movie, if you ask me. There's also something then they start talking about Ainz that the movie doesn't really mention. It's that Nea notices that some of the things that Shizu is saying kind of contradicts like what she think could happen. Shizu makes a comment about like how, oh, those who come after should listen to the ones that came before. And Nea's just like, what are you talking about? I've been serving the Sorcerer King longer than you have, because to Nea's knowledge, CZ had just been taken control of in the previous fight, in the previous chapter. And they also make a point of this in the movie of where Shizu says like, oh, yes, he said I could call him Lord Ainz, and Nea's just like, what are you talking about? When did he give you permission to do that? During the fight? Shizu kind of brushes over this, but like Nea is basically noticing those kind of logical contradictions going on in this conversation. But they basically bond over their shared love of Ainz, and this is where Shizu puts the sticker on her, and we don't really see what's on it in the movie, but in the book Nea notes it's the number 1 followed by what she thinks is some letter. It's actually a 1 yen sticker. And Shizu just kind of puts that on things that she's like, oh, puts it on things she thinks are cute. One small thing in the movie, Shizu says, I put this on cute things. But in the book, Shizu's like, you're not cute, but I'm gonna put this on you anyway because I like you. And this comes up a few more times in the book. It's actually kind of funny. The scene plays out pretty much exactly the same from this point on. There's really no more cut content. And then we move straight into the infiltration of Kalinsha. So these events play out pretty faithfully in the movie. We just get more explanation as to why they're doing what they're doing. Like whereas in the movie, this stuff just happens and you know, you don't really know what's going on. They're just infiltrating the castle. As for why they snuck in the barrels with meat, it was intentionally to mask their sense, because some demi-humans in the army have very, very good senses of smell. Also, there's a little internal dialogue from Nea when Shizu pulls out the weapons, and we see the gun that Shizu has. And we get some information on how Nea views that gun and how it's a mana gun, so it uses magic to shoot its bullets. Shizu mentions like, oh, don't worry, this gun doesn't use gunpowder. And Nea's like, what the hell is gunpowder? Like, I don't know what that is. Because obviously this world doesn't have gunpowder. Firearms aren't a normal thing. There are like items that use like gun-like things, like we saw that with, we see that in season 4. Gunpowder doesn't exist in this world. So like when she mentions like and starts talking about guns and stuff like that, Nea has no idea what she's talking about, so she just kind of brushes over it. And also that Nea is calling Shizu Miss Shizu at Shizu's request as kind of like a seniority thing. And Shizu is getting like, when she doesn't call her Miss Shizu, she gets like noticeably grumpy if she doesn't get called out, which is adorable. So then we get the full infiltration. And once again, this was pretty faithful in the movie, but I'll just explain what's going on. There's this scene where they rappel down the outside of the wall. They kind of go to a lower floor. The reason they do that is because the demi-humans, they knew there was a long corridor on that floor, so they needed to get down to the floor below so they could have a clear line of sight when they attack the demi-humans, and so they could take them out quickly. It's small things like that. It's basically telling us there are strategic reasons for every action that they're taking. They're not just freeballing it. This was a well thought out plan here. There was a small thing when they get to that sky bridge, and Nea is kind of like analyzing it in the light novel, and she's like, oh man, like this is gonna be dangerous. I am super scared to do this. And I think Shizu noticed how worried Nea was about the sky bridge, because she's already claimed Nea, and so she doesn't want anything to happen to Nea. So she's just like, you know what, I'm gonna take care of this. You wait here, Nea. That's what I think happened. This isn't from Shizu's point of view. We don't get her point of view at all in the book. So that's what I just would think was happened, because she was like looking at her really hard when Nea was analyzing the sky bridge and kind of freaking out. So then they're climbing the spire to get to the prince's room, and that's when they encounter the THO guard. Now, I mentioned all the demi-human types in one of these cut content videos, but I'll go ahead and explain what the THO is. THO are basically a sub-race of ogres, and they have powers that control water. We see that a little bit during the fight, because like he creates mist, and he like kind of, his body like kind of reforms, like it turns into liquid. That's the water powers of the THO being shown. And the fight is basically exactly the same as it is in the light novel. I really don't have much to say here. I thought it was beautifully done in the anime. Very good job. There was one small thing, is after the THO is defeated, in the movie, Nea says, like, I have this item that'll let me use a recovery spell, but I can only use it once. In the book, Nea makes a note of she used to only be able to use it once, but now she can use it multiple times because she's gotten stronger because of the fight that she was a part of previously. So I guess in the light novel, she's stronger than she is in the movie. So then we meet the Zarin prince, and this scene once again is pretty much the same. Not much to comment on here in terms of cut content. There's small funny comments made by Nea throughout this scene, like when she picks the prince up and puts him on her back in like a sack. She said there was a comment about her saying she's done this with babies before, but every time she looks at a baby they always cry, which of course is referencing her intense eyes. And also how like she thinks the Zarin prince is like funny looking, and how he just looks like a maggot. What is going on? Like, he looks so different compared to the Zarins that we saw before. So then after that, we get a scene where the Prince, Nea, and Shizu meet up with other Zarins, and they discuss their next move. This is where we finally have some significant cuts here. This scene is shortened immensely. So in the movie, basically, they just decide like, okay, we're gonna go take out this demon aid, and then we're gonna get out of here. In the light novel, they actually have a conversation about how they're like, what can we do? We can't go back to the Abelion Hills because like Yaldabaoth's demon has taken over our territory. And that's where Nea suggests that they all go to the Sorcerer Kingdom as refugees. And the princess is like, oh, it's ruled by an undead though. And Nea's like, no, trust me. Subhumans and humans all live there in peace. Like it'll be fine. Where the prince decides that all the Zarins after Kalinshina is liberated will get out and go to the Sorcerer Kingdom to escape Yaldabaoth. But then one of the Zarins brings up like, oh, one of the demon aids of Yaldabaoth is here. And in the movie, they basically just decide to fight the demon aid because it's just like, it's a good chance to take it out and weaken Yaldabaoth's army or whatever. Like, they don't really give an explanation as to why they want to fight it. Whereas in the light novel, because they're going to the Sorcerer Kingdom, they want to disrupt Yaldabaoth's command structure and slow the news that the Zarins are fleeing to the Sorcerer Kingdom. So they want to take out the demon aid in order to mess up Yaldabaoth's command structure for that area. Really good reasoning here, and that we get in the light novel. I'm amazed at how well thought out. It just seems like everything has a reason for why it happens. You know, it's not just because it looks cool or for plot convenience. It's there are specific reasons for everything going on. So the demon they fight is called a circlet, but there are other demons that are like kind of like the circlet, but they're higher ranked. And the highest ranked is called a silk hat. And silk hats can equip up to 4 heads and can use up to 10th tier magic. And Shizu mentions that, and she's like, if we run to a silk hat who can use 10th tier, we have to run. And then as soon as she says 10th tier, Nea and the prince are like, what are you talking about 10th tier? Because the prince was like gloating earlier in this conversation that he can use 4th tier magic. And they're like, isn't 5th tier the highest that a normal person can do? That's the upper limit. And Shizu's like, no, the spell that Yaldabaoth used to drop a meteor on the gate, that was a 10th tier spell. And that's when Nea's like, oh wait, can the king use 10th tier spells too? And Nea's like, yeah, duh. And everyone just starts freaking out. They're just like, what the fuck is 10th tier? Like 10th tier? Like we're going to this guy's country, this guy who can use 10th tier stuff? What the? They didn't even know 10th tier existed. We also get a little bit more of an explanation as to the other head besides Kellart that the circlet is using. In the movie they mention this as well, but it's called the grandmother. Not like, oh, this is my grandma. It's the grandmother of the Pandex race, which is a different race of demi-humans. And we also get an explanation as to that magic that we see the circlet use during the fight. So basically the grandmother and the prince have basically the same type of magic, but they're inverses of each other. That's why every time during the fight, the prince uses a spell. He says yin blank spell. The circlet says yang that same spell because they cancel each other out. And the prince knows this before going into the fight. He mentions that like, oh, if the circlet has the grandmother's head, then he'll be able to cancel out all my magic. But the circlet can only use cumulative tiers up to 6. And because the prince is casting 4th tier magic, that means the circlet will only be able to use 2nd tier magic on them. So basically we just get more of an explanation before the fight even takes place as to the abilities of the circlet and what exactly the circlet can do. So then we have the actual fight with the circlet, which once again, I think the movie did a wonderful job here. There's basically nothing missing from this fight scene. There was one small thing where before the fight, Nea asked who the other head that the circlet was, and the Zarin prince goes, oh, I don't know, it's a human. And Nea thinks like, oh my gosh, it could be the Holy Lady. And so she asks the prince, what color was the hair? And the prince goes, oh, it was black or light black, I think. And Nea's like, okay, no one from the Sacred Kingdom has black hair. Like you only see black hair if you go south. So it can't be someone from the Sacred Kingdom. But then when the fight starts, we get this big scene in the movie too, where it's revealed that the second head that the circlet has is of Kellart, and she does not have black hair. So Nea immediately goes to the prince. It's just like, you told me that person had black hair. That is Kellart Custodio. That person does not have black hair. And the prince is like, what are you talking about? That person obviously has black hair. And it's because the Zarins are actually colorblind. They, as Nea describes it as, they are only able to see in black and white, which I guess they don't have the term colorblind in the New World. But yeah, the Zarins are actually colorblind. So that was just a mistake on the prince's part due to his colorblindness. Then we have that scene where Shizu jumps in front of Nea, and I was always under the impression that the demon was gonna kill everyone. Definitely gonna kill Nea until Shizu jumped in, and that basically made the demon change their plan. Like, okay, so, because the demon obviously knows who Shizu is, and so the demon was just like, oh shit, one of the Pleiades likes this human, I better not kill this human. And then of course we have the Runes promotion, which I gotta admit, during the movie it just felt it was so disjointed in the movie, and I think that really worked. She's just suddenly yelling about the runes, and the demon is just like, oh, the ancient magic of runecraft. And even the prince is like, oh, runes are on that weapon? And Nea's just like, no, shut up. And this line was so funny in the dub because there's just a long silence, and then the demon goes, but the runes! I just thought that was so funny. So then the fight ends, and this is where we get a massive deviation from the light novel. So in the movie, we hear the Liberation Army, and we cut to Remedios, and she's riding in, and then Yaldabaoth descends. The Zarins are they vanish into thin air after that. They are never seen on screen again after that because it's just CZ and Nea running to do they immediately jump into this final battle scene here. That is not what happens in the light novel. In the light novel, after the little talk, after defeating the demon, they can hear the Liberation Army kind of coming in, and then they can hear the battle for Kalinsha is starting, and Prince directs the Zarin like, okay, you gotta help the humans take back the city like we agreed, and then they're supposed to get back in the barrels and get out of the city, but Nea and Shizu don't want to get back in the barrels, so they're both like, okay, we'll help you with the fighting, and the prince is like, okay, let's go. We have to get back in the barrels, and we'll go meet some of my other tribe mates. And that's the end of the scene, and several weeks go by in the next page. Yeah, in the movie, they just immediately move into this big final battle scene right there in Kalinchta. The chapter ends with them saying, all right, let's get into the barrels and go meet up with my other tribe mates. You turn the page, there's no battle scene in Kalinchta at all. Several weeks had passed. They merged the ending chapter of the book right in the same scene. Like I said, they've done this before where they're taking scenes that happen in different places in different times in the light novel and just kind of combining them into one giant scene. So basically imagine in the movie when that cut happens to go over to Remedios and the army coming in and everything like that. Imagine that happening, but several weeks later and in a different place. That's kind of what happens in the light novel. But we will get into that next time because that is the end of chapter 6. Guys, I know this is such a long book. I swear. I covered over 100 pages in this video. It's once again a huge chunk of the book, but this book is just like so huge. But next time, guys, we will be covering the final chapter, chapter 7, and the epilogue of volume 13 of Overlord, and also be finishing up covering the Sacred Kingdom content. There were a lot less glaring omissions than there were last time. Unlike the previous part, the battle scenes were very, very faithful to the light novel, and actually they felt like they were a little longer in the movie than they were in the light novel. I don't know, I felt like I read them pretty fast. Basically what changed in the light novel to movie was the tone in the light novel. Just Nea is more on edge with who she's working with in the light novel. You just notice that way more than you do in the movie. In the movie, she just kind of seems to go along with everything very, very quickly. There's way more doubt in Nea's mind that's prevalent in the light novel than we get in the movie. But yeah, guys, next time we will finish up the misadventures of Nea and Shizu, and as well as getting into the final part of volume 13 and the Overlord Sacred Kingdom movie. So guys, what did you think of this cut content episode? Did you enjoy this part of the movie as much as I did? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. You know I love to hear from you all. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see another one like it, please like that video to let me know. And if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and it'll let you know when I post in the future. With that being said, I want to thank you all for watching till the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.